Hello, everyone. I want to welcome you to the first Coherence Lab of 2025. I'm so excited to be regathering with this lovely group, and I feel like I'm in a room full of wisdom keepers here, and I know I am. I'd like to just take a moment before we get started to have everyone introduce themselves and let us know where you're calling in from. We'll be holding space today for Cameron Scott. Cameron, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I'm bringing myself from very chilly, windy New England, specifically just outside of Boston. And usually I sit with the hat of polyvagal theory person. And I'm just thrilled to be invited and welcomed here today to be a participant. So that is me today.
That's wonderful. And we're so happy you can just be Cameron today. Great.
Delicious invitation.
And Lois, welcome.
Hi. Hi, Cameron. It's really great to see you today and Happy New Year. Right. So I'm Lois McNaughton and I'm in Calgary in Canada. I'm a developmental coach, so that's the lens I look through is helping people meet their challenges in ways that help them be more themselves.
Thanks. And Tanya?
Hi, Cameron. I am here trying to look through a couple different lenses at once, that of homeopathy, that of human design, some polyvagal. So yeah, and then I'll have to figure out what comes forward the most for me today with what you bring forward. So this is exciting. I'm glad to be here. And I'm from New Hampshire.
Great, thanks. And Janet?
Hi, Cameron. Nice to see you. I'm Janet Kesnick. Like you, we're neighbors. I'm in the Boston area, and it is chilly and windy. And I do my work here in the Boston area as an energy healing practitioner, sound healing, and an Akashic Records reader. So I will be thinking about where you are, how I'm reading and catching things from you energetically. I know very well that you are already in your essence, so it'll be interesting to play with that and explore what might be of help from this angle today.
Thanks, Janet. Ursula, hello.
Hello, I'm Ursula and I'm joining from Bulgaria. I'm happy to be here and I'm looking forward to what Cameron is going to share. Thank you very much. I'm a transpersonal therapist and a constellation facilitator and trainer. And today I want to add and author of the book In the Spirit of Love and Reconciliation. So yes, and I'm going to look from the transpersonal and transgenerational side if anything comes up for me in that from that perspective. Thank you.
Thanks, Ursula. And I'm Lauren Hubele. I'm in New Hampshire. And Cameron, I'll be sharing with you my thoughts on your state at this moment and how chemotherapy extracts might meet that state, specifically the ones for the nervous system, and how they might support your ability to come further into yourself and deliver the gifts you have to bring in the world. So thank you. And Christine, we're going to turn this over to you. We'll give you a moment to introduce yourself. If we can turn off our cameras and let you and Cameron have the space to yourself.
Sounds great. Thanks. Hello, Cameron. How are you?
I'm well, Christine. I'm just so delighted by this opportunity.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, so I'm here just as the lens of creativity. I've always had that outlook on the world and this piece of human design. So I'm gonna be exploring with you today a little bit, not overtly through that lens, but that's gonna be where I'm coming from in our
Mhm.
discussion today. So
Well, I'm
um,
delighted because I don't know enough yet about
yeah,
human design. So this
yeah.
is a wonderful opportunity.
Yeah, it is. It's an interesting system, and I don't think people have to know a lot about it to really get something from it. So I'm hoping that we can do some of that exploration here. So, great. So let's just dive in. Okay.
Wonderful.
Awesome. So why don't you just tell me what it's like being Cameron today?
My moment today is being delighted to be held here in this wonderful space. And I'm trying not to focus on the fact that there are people outside my home. I'm looking, as when I look over out this direction, there's a ladder, there are gutters that are being installed. I have some concerns over this final push of doing what has been almost year-long renovations. It's been a huge privilege. It's also been a very long year, 7 months of which I moved over to the neighbors. And during that term of giving up all my possessions, half to storage, half to wherever they went, it was also a year of seeing the loss of my two cats, which was very tough. I was like, feeling that, as sometimes that image is like you get to the edge of the cliff and then you have second thoughts about wanting to go over it, but the hand comes from behind and there was no going back. And so it has been, the timing of this time is so wonderful, where it's a gift for me because I feel like I'm still taking stock and want to hold in some sort of context how this year has affected me, how I've grown through it, what have been the challenges, in a way of being present with myself. I generally fault myself at being wonderfully able to hold space for others. I am least capable for holding space for my own well-being, my own nervous system, with myself. And this is why, being me here today, I have this opportunity to bring focus through all of your perspectives of how I do a better job at supporting me. And that moving, I think for me, I was just talking in my work setting the other day, that self-care isn't self-indulgence. It's absolutely necessary for all of us to be who we are for ourselves, and then all of the other people we, love or work with or care about. And yeah.
Yeah. No, that's true. So this has been a really tricky year, sounds
A
like.
lot. Yes.
Yeah. In all of that, has there been anything in particular that's been like the most trying, or the thing that was the piece that you're most looking at that is something that's come up for you that would be useful to share, maybe?
I think for me, there's been a real shift, having given up, many aspects of my go-to look for comfort. I mean, for me, I have had for years a practice of a morning meditation and a little altar and little familiar things that represented that context of solidness inside myself, and letting that go. My cats lived, they were siblings, um, almost 13 years, and realizing where I was in my life and coming together, and wanting to realize I needed to really shift. And it was during the course of the summer that, where did I go to feel my own anchor? It certainly wasn't, in the greater world of politics. It wasn't in my surroundings. It wasn't. And so the biggest challenge in what I'm holding now is, because I continue to feel we are living in very challenged times. Where do I go? Where do I rely on to find my well-being in terms of centeredness and in terms of my nervous system? And I found I've taken a lot of walks this year. Often, if I do well for my physical well-being, I'll walk, at some point, in the morning, and then at the end of the day, I have a discussion with myself whether I want to or not. We're going out for a walk, and just finding that right now, being held by Mother Nature is incredibly important to me, even if it's freezing cold.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
Is there a place inside that feels most safe?
I find inside it's probably my morning meditations, and just for me, the practice, my morning meditation is completely self-designed. I don't find, anybody's particular recipe. But for me, it is connecting with a calm inside and then really allowing a sense of being connected by a much larger sense of the universe, I would say, is probably my language.
Right. Can you specify, like, is there a place in your body that feels most calm when or that you look for the calm when you're in that meditative space?
I find it, well, if there's a cat in my lap, it's definitely a lovely presence, but it's not specifically in a place in my body, I'd say. It's the quiet. I follow breath in. I try to calm my mind by listening to the tick of the clock or following in breath, and often I sit just before the light of day, and so there's a visual calm around me.
Mm, okay. Do you feel like you have a strong connection to your embodied wisdom in general?
I would say yes,
Okay.
but that's based on my experience. I don't know what I don't know. I feel like I have a fairly good sense. Maybe when you say body wisdom, how much it is sensation versus wisdom. I think that one,
Say more about that.
I think I'm probably not the best at really speaking objectively about, slight tinge, tightening, very specific sensation based. But I feel like the overall wisdom of my body is very accessible, but it is more of a sense, a broader sense.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Do you feel like when you're tapped into that space that you follow the wisdom of your body?
It's certainly my intention. I think one of the things that I bring here is I notice over the course of the day, I am such a morning person. And being in tune with body, with place, with spirit at the beginning of the day is just a delight. I love it. By the end of the day, by the end of work, by the end of whatever has come at me, it's like, is it time to go to bed yet? Trying to, push back from the day's challenges.
Mhm.
I am not a strong person in the evening. And that's one of the things I look to develop. I don't have one I practice really of things I truly look forward to in the evenings.
Hmm.
I'm not a TV watcher. I'm a terrible reader. I'm not well resourced. It's not likely that I'm going to take up needlepoint.
Oh, needlepoint's pretty cool, actually.
Well, and one of the things that I have a physical challenge of just my eyesight's not good in the dark.
Hmm.
And I think that, but yes, I want to develop more, relaxation, engagement with something. And, because I prefer not to drive far at night because it's a visual thing. What it is that does make me feel well connected and joyfully so in a quiet way in the evening.
Well, so as you're spending your days, I assume you're mostly at work. Um, are you enjoying that work? And not like, again, this is a space where I'm going to ask you from this embodied space. Are you embodied wisdom? Yes, I'm enjoying this work.
I would say yes.
Okay,
It's very satisfying and it brings a sense of well-being in my body.
good. Okay, well, that's
Sometimes sitting in a chair is not. So I am pleased I no longer am doing long stretches of highly scripted teaching. And that was a good shift for me.
what did you notice when you shifted from that?
That my body will settle out and do quite nicely over an engagement of, sitting for 1 hour. But after that, a chance to get up, stretch my legs, move about physically, just bring motion and an upright stance is huge. And being able to really enjoy going to my resources, they come through body, that come through a sense of, connection to guidance, if you will. I love my work.
Yeah, good, good. So I heard you talk about wanting to do some different evening practices, which, you know, yeah. What are there other things that you're like, this is this new year, like a lot of people really like this
Yeah.
whole resolution, intention thing. Is there something in particular that you're focused on in this year that since you did have such a huge disruptive year last year?
Well, there is that way. Building forward in my new home is a really important place I want to hold. And I, at the time of the pandemic, when I left going to a brick and mortar office a few towns away, the two things that oddly sustained me was getting to know some of the political groundwork in the American history of our democracy and following particularly the work of Heather Cox Richardson, who's someone who lives in the Boston area. And at a time where I found it so unsettling in our world to learn that, first of all, I didn't hate history. I actually rather loved it if it was offered it in an engaged way. Um, and then the other thing that I took up, I was privileged living up and growing up with a very new agey family in the Boston area to have my astrological chart done for the first time at age 10 with one of the late great astrologers, Isabel Hickey. I have always loved astrology and I have been learning astrology and particularly like the work of Jody Wynn, but there's plenty of people that I sort of follow and I would like to learn fluency in astrology. I know enough to be oddly a little bit dangerous, but not enough to feel like I can really enjoy it and use it as a language. And it's a context. It's a context for understanding. And I think so often my joy of being part of this group is we offer people contexts for understanding that are very affirming and empowering. And for me, the language of astrology is particularly, I'd like to continue to learn about.
Yeah, yeah, me too. I want to learn more astrology also. I think it's going to be important for all of us. Um, so you don't feel like you have any particular challenges at the moment, and you don't, I mean, you have this intellectual goal of, learning astrology, but you don't have any, do you have any, oh, I don't know, like embodied wisdom goals, I'm
Yeah.
wondering.
I think I've come to appreciate that my nervous system, where it meets my biology, has given me a wonderful blessing and also a challenge in sensitivity. I'm one of those people that needs to eat clean, that needs to live fairly clean. I can afford to color outside the lines, as I did last night when I joined a friend for dinner down the street. But coming into the new year through the holidays, I'd like to see this first quarter of this new year being a time that I really reaffirm my physical health and support my sensitivity so that it feels good. Today is a good example of, if I'm going to eat that way and that's not necessarily according to what my body truly appreciates, I'm not going to feel great for a day or two.
Mm,
And so that
interesting.
is definitely an intention.
Right. Well, and a real indicator too of this connection to that embodied wisdom, right? Like this recognition that what we eat does have that effect is really important. And so following that, I can
Yeah.
see.
And that's about listening, with more appreciation and sensitivity.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So it sounds like paying more attention to the sensitivity piece, really
Mhm.
working with that, recognizing how you can, um, I don't, is it when you say that, is there a particular feeling that you're trying to get to in that space? Like, does that make sense? Like if you were to achieve this thing of being more aware of the sensitivity, working with it more, what would that
Mhm.
bring you in your life?
Well, I love it when Lauren does her other work, particularly interviewing Jody Wind, which I follow. And this is, definitely a Cameron plug of something that means a lot to me. Um, when I'm in a good place with my embodied wisdom and all the rest of it, I can respond to myself, respond to my environment, and to respond to others. And, recently in the renovation project has really shown me those moments where how do I hold my dysregulation? How do I hopefully appreciate it, but also work with it? And this morning I just had a walk and let me listen to myself and have at it what it was I was not happy about, and how I relate to myself. One of the things that I learned about myself when I lost my cats is outside of the obvious. I was then a household in 6 weeks with from three of us to just one of us. Is I'm a very auditory processor. When I wasn't talking to my cats, I didn't realize what I lost because they weren't particularly good at giving me feedback anyway. But the process of listening to myself was something I came to honor. It was a real learning for me. Um, my mind moves very quickly, but if nobody's paying attention and nobody's listening, I don't benefit from my own communication with myself.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll just say I can see that in your design. So
I can't wait to see what you see.
um yeah, is there anything else? I mean, anything else that we should touch on that we haven't? Anything else that's alive in you in the moment?
Oh, probably, but I'm not thinking about it in this moment in time.
Okay. Does it feel
I guess a
complete?
little bit
Okay.
is what it means to be. I'm in April, I will be 67, which doesn't strike me as a particularly advanced age, but definitely I would like to move more into a sense of I can't really call myself an elder yet.
Mm,
Celebrating where I am in my life and giving myself credit for what I do hold and know. And see, why would I even think to say this? Um, I think in some ways, as an elder, I hold it's time to kind of step up and step into, being seen, being heard, whether people are asking for it or not. This is me. And with the remainder of my life, which hopefully will be long enough to enjoy these renovations and a few other things, that I can invite myself. It still feels like challenging myself, but invite myself into enjoying that.
yeah, I love that. I'm just real curious why you don't think you could call yourself an elder.
It's I'm and I'd be curious what other people have found. I grew up in a family that hiding in plain sight was the best way to stay safe. And through my nervous system work, have learned how important it was for me to stay safe. But that was at the sacrifice of being seen, including at times really knowing myself.
Interesting. Interesting. So you think of an elder as someone who is grounded in themselves and also willing to be put themselves out on,
Yeah,
in the world. Okay,
yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
Interesting. Huh. Wow.
None
I
of
think
my family is insisting that I write a memoir, but I feel like, at least in the world that I live in, I have been privileged to learn through my own experience and through years of working with others a lot. And it feels like, I at least want it to be appreciated.
yeah, absolutely. Well, and shared, right? Like this
Yeah,
is something else I can see in your design. This is a really important aspect of your energy.
yeah.
So, yeah, that
I
makes
think
sense to
I also in my belief systems, and one of them is that of soul evolution, that those of us, and this is the words of Jody Wind as well, those of us that are here now on this planet didn't come here by accident. We came in here to support some rapidly changing time, and Mother Earth is evolving, and so I mean I look at the amount of polarity that is around the world right now, and that's not easy stuff for a lot of us to feel safe and tolerate. And
right.
can I rise to the occasion of being me and bringing my resources rather than being another aspect of flaming breakdown. I think, some days it's not so clear I have that choice, and other days I do better.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing, right? Like that is what we're all here for, right? We all have good and bad days, right? Even us elders. You know?
And I would say if I had one other thing I would love to add to my intentions is that sense of community is not as solid, and I'm not even sure these days what that means.
Mhm.
But I
Interesting.
know that I don't have enough of that feels like whether it's people in a group setting or individuals or like-minded humans and what that context might be, but that's definitely, I think, on the table for developing.
Yeah, absolutely. I
Yeah.
love that. That's a lot. That's a lot. And those things I think all come together in a way that could be really beautiful. Um, any other things that come up for you?
I'm trying one of the ways that I tolerated all the changes of this past year was at the time that I lost my former cats, who I both believe were great teachers, was honoring their lives. And it was an aspect of my own surrender, basically saying, okay, universe, okay, spirits of my pets past, when it's time for me to have two more, little troops in my life, let me know and help me find the right two. And I promised myself that I would not do what I had done again, which was take on two pretty rowdy little, separated from their parent little hoodlums like I had with my former brother and sister. And so it was in September, I was in Boston and had a meeting that put me very close to the Animal Rescue League of Greater Boston. And it was not my intentions to come home with two kittens that, of course, were feral kittens, two sisters. But it happened. I'm like, okay, we're on a ride. And I've already put them in a place of they're my teachers. That if they don't talk about feral kittens as much as they used to, they call them tiny tigers because these were members of a litter of five that were trapped at 5 or 6 weeks of age, they think, living in outdoors, and they had some brief foster care. They were spayed and neutered one day, and the entire litter of five went off to new homes the next day. Like,
Wow.
here you go.
Wow.
And they're already great teachers. One of them is they were both, don't even think of touching me. These are not take home your little lap pet type, but one of them is very much needed cues of safety. The other one is teaching me about patience, which is
Mm.
not necessarily something I've had with myself or the world around me, because she really does like connection with humans. But I have to, when I think it's time to move on and do something else, I have to sit there for another 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes because she needs to approach me, and I need to be settled enough in myself, in my physical space, for that cue of invitation and safety to be out there. She's gonna help me really sit down a lot better.
I love that. I love that for you. Well, and I love this idea that this is really what all of us, all the beings are, right? All the beings are here as our teachers, right?
Absolutely, no exceptions.
I love that. Um, anything else? If not, I'd open it back up for
Yeah,
other questions.
there's always something else, but in
Yeah.
this moment, I'm not identifying it.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, I would just say that, well, just thank you. I love this. It was a great conversation. I suspect other people might have some questions, so maybe I'll open it
Bring them
up to
on.
that. Okay.
Yes, thank you, Christine.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I don't know. Am I seeing people come back? Are they doing it in the
They've all
chat?
gone off to somewhere else.
Okay. Yeah.
We'll come back up for you.
There. Thanks.
So does anyone have a question before we share? Yeah, Christine, I'll let you manage those.
Okay, sorry. I let Lauren do this stuff. I got to get back in my space here. All right, Tanya, I was actually Lois, I see your question. Do you want to just step on and ask it?
Well, I was just as you were sharing, I was thinking about all the people that you've held space for over the years, and that today it's a stepping out for you, for us, supporting you in your life. Who do you turn to when you need support?
Interesting. I don't have a big cast of humans, and it bears asking the question too of what I look for in support. I mean, sometimes it is just co-regulation with another human, and I don't specifically say, oh my goodness, I have blah, 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 fill in. It's not the content, but it's the connection that matters. Things have evolved in this past year where I've spent time with family, but grandchildren are getting older, and time with their Mimi is a little less magical, especially when you can play video games or talking to friends online, or. So I'm in an evolutionary process, and that's, I think, one of the things I want to look at is, who do I go to? Asking for support, not one of my strong suits.
Tanya, I think you had a question also.
I did, but let's let Ursula go first. She has a time constraint.
I don't have a question, so should I? No, I didn't say that I have a question. I
Okay.
have something to say, but it was not a question.
Okay.
So
Okay, so my question is, so there is a review, and of course, usually in January, there's always a review of the past year. And so there's this reviewing of the past year of a loss of, cats, a loss of environment in space. And what I see is that you're pretty good at constructing environment to create stability, and that environment was destabilized. But how is this feeling right now that you're in the same or different than, say, during COVID time, where there was, the change of environment in that we were locked in, and there was an isolation that where we were locked in, and that's some of what I'm hearing. Is there a sense of isolation? So I'm wondering how you compare and contrast, like what's different about this year than, say, 2020, 2021?
That's a really good question, because that quality of isolation I experienced, particularly when we went into rapid shutdown, really tossed my nervous system. I mean, I was there are days I'm like, okay, I'm going to sit on my old fashioned, it was like cranking stationary bike, and I put my computer to listen to Heather Cox Richardson's podcast on a stool, and I was just literally fighting a very mobilized response to that isolation. It took a lot to work through, working with myself, not being able to go do, have that interaction. I was a household. Thankfully, that's where I think I really learned how much my cats were important to me, because it was just the three of us. Now I think being able to, I think, be freer and more accountable to my environment, this process of renovations, and also being able to go out. And, if I don't necessarily connect with people directly and on content, my afternoon walks, which are at the Wildlife Refuge, are incredibly, that's a place I come back into calm, come back into my physicality in a gentle way that invites, a sense of expansion that wasn't true during the COVID shutdown days.
And so I'm wondering if obviously you survived that period of time and you learned things about yourself. Are there things that you can bring forward from that time period into now, even though the situation's different?
Yeah. And I think it really, I had to learn humbly how to walk my talk in terms of the nervous system work, which was really allowed me to also become more connected to my sense of place in the universe. You know, where was my sense of belonging in me? And then where's my sense of belonging, you know, in the context of my life? And I didn't have me. I also didn't have my office where I went to and did good work and, you know, listened to myself talk occasionally. It was very humbling.
Any other questions from anyone? No? All right. I guess do we flip into the next stage?
Yeah. Yeah, Christine, I'll let you off the hook. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Christine, thank you so much for holding space with Cameron. And Cameron, thank you for answering so honestly. What we will do at this point is shift into some sharing. And Ursula, I'm going to have you start us out since you have a time constraint and we'll need to leave. And Cameron, I'm just going to ask that you can sit back and take this in. If you need clarity, you feel free to ask for that. But for the most part, just listen in. You'll have the recording. You can also review it. Okay.
Yeah, I would really appreciate that. I always have the wish to like take notes and when I do that, I lose out on
Yeah.
being fully present. So
Yeah, just
adjusting the pillow
listen.
behind my back so I really can sit back. Thank you.
Great, great. Thanks, Ursula.
So did I understand right that this sharing also is part of how we felt? Or is this something that
No.
comes later? Okay, okay, good. So when you were talking about, Cameron, that you are very well able to hold space for others, but not so much for yourself. So from the transgenerational perspective, I just took a few notes, and this is, that's a pattern that very often relates, and then you confirmed it later on when you said, you know, drawing back was the only safe space, that the only way that we felt safe. When we grow up in these circumstances, the child that we are at that stage develops a very good instinct for what others need. And this could be physically, this could be emotionally, and what the child needs to give to others so that the child feels safe.
Absolutely.
Right? Makes sense?
Mm.
So when we grow up, this child is still within us. You know, we can be 80 or 90, but the child within us is still there with all the experiences, and all this is in our body and in our emotions and in our nervous system. So from what you are describing, you are already very much in touch with that inner child, holding space for yourself. So not holding space for yourself, but from what I understood, what you shared, when you go for a walk, when you now learn without the cats to talk to yourself, right? And rely on what your answers are to what you are saying. So as sad the loss of the cats is, there is also this part, that this loneliness or this empty space gives you maybe an opportunity to listen more and more and more to this inner child, and what this little Cameron needs.
Mhm.
To be, and here I come to what you shared about being the elder, because this is what you are, right? With all this wisdom.
Mhm.
So the connection with the child and this belief that I can be myself, I don't have to make sure anymore that others feel safe or that others are happy or whatever. And I'm talking about myself here too, because I think this is something that we are very, very, so you are not alone with all this, you know. I think this is the real step to the elder, to allow ourselves just to be,
Mhm.
no matter if we are, no, without comparing ourselves with others,
Yes.
right?
Mhm. Yes.
It's just, it's just who you are. So saying yes to
Mhm.
ourselves, no matter how we are, and yes, without comparing ourselves to others. Because we are, someone said, we are not special, but we are unique. And this, for me, was a very important insight that we do not need to be special, but we all have a uniqueness. And to be with this uniqueness, yeah.
And I'm clarifying because I think I'm hearing building that relationship, not only of safety, but trust.
Yes, definitely.
And that's,
Yes.
thank you.
Yes. You said you gave this beautiful picture of the cat where you say she needs to trust me. So this is the same. The cat is the inner child. And the inner child needs to trust you. So when you sit there and you listen and you make sure and you don't expect anything, then the connection can happen. So this is really beautiful. Yes. Thank you
I'm
so
smiling
much.
with listening to what you're offering and also thinking, because I have the two cats. One of them really likes soft, gentle touches. The other one is, can you scratch me harder? Can you scratch me harder? And when they both come, accepting the uniqueness. And that's
Yes.
a nice way I'm understanding what you're saying, which is really
Yes.
lovely. Thank you.
Yes. 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 Beautiful. Thank you so much, Cameron. This was such a,
Thank you,
yeah,
Ursula.
thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Ursula. Thanks. Janet, I see you nodding, and so it feels right to go to you and see what's coming up for you right now.
Oh, thank you, Lauren. Cameron, it was really an honor to listen to you. And Christine, such beautiful questions you asked. I could, I feel like, Cameron, you really are a self-aware person. You listen, you know. And there are always, as you yourself said, there's always more. And Christine brought some very interesting questions in that helped you. Oh, maybe there's something here too. So it's such a nice inquiry process. As I listened, I found, as usual, myself listening from the chakra standpoint. And your root chakra has gone through quite a bit this year. Renovation of our physical space is very unsettling. It's very much residential resides in the root chakra. That alone would have been enough. And the duration of it, this wasn't a 3-month renovation. This has been long term. You described giving away some things, putting some things in storage, not having our things around us can be unsettling. So the fact that you're able to sit still at all, having gone through that, is quite remarkable. And the loss of your cats, life and death reside in the root chakra. So here's another significant loss and shift. And then, as you described, there's the world and everything that's happening in our own culture and country and around the planet. It is not a settled time. So your root chakra, if you are addressing it through your nature walks and through your meditation and through your nervous system work, I found myself thinking, I wonder if you ever have a drum that you could play, and simply getting a drum with a nice tone that you resonate with, if you will, and playing a simple heartbeat of pat, 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 pat. I think that this might be calming for you. You don't have to wait to buy a drum if you don't have one. We all have our hearts right here, and simply putting a hand here and patting, pat, pat, just right, the heartbeat rhythm can be very calming. Now you're nodding, so is there something that speaks to you about
I'm
that?
so fascinated because we get messages in all ways. And on my little ginger tea bag, my yogi tea, it says, every beat of your heart is the rhythm of your soul. I just have one of those. Sometimes I want to know if the universe really is having some fun at my expense, and this is a true fun. I think is one of those moments for which I am grateful.
Well, I think our work here is done. You've got, you have the
Well, I was
message.
curious too, because in my learnings, the root chakra is also where trauma, childhood trauma, our rootedness on earth is also held. And
Yes,
so I feel like the invitations are also having the courage to move through some of that process of healing and integrating. And I know one of the things I've learned a lot through just this process of this past year is my evolving relationship with fear. You know, whether it's fear of being seen or fear of having a voice or fear that whatever fears is definitely up for getting to know, and that feels very root chakra-ish.
absolutely. And thinking of connecting that root chakra as it is healing, then with your throat chakra to, make that little dotted line up there, and through your heart and through the other chakras, but through your heart and into your voice. Because I think probably everyone on this call is going to encourage you to step into your, if elder seems not quite right yet, wise woman, just because I think you know how to share that with others. There's maybe just a little glitch there that's saying, oh, well, it's not quite time, or seen and not heard, and better hold back a little bit. And yet I certainly experience you as someone who has so much to share, and that you do share it beautifully. So it's really just a matter perhaps of owning that, as Ursula was saying, just knowing it and trusting it. And I loved that you practiced sharing your thoughts and your processing with your cats, and discovered when they weren't there that you weren't
Yep.
having that experience. That's a huge piece of self-knowledge. You can talk to your plants, talk to the new cats, talk to whoever. Just, it's really talking to yourself, as Ursula says, and really owning that. So that connection with your throat chakra feels important to highlight for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for all you shared. Go ahead, excuse me, did you have
Well,
a?
I was just curious because I feel both sensation wise and I wanting to understand the I call it my yellow chakra, but my third
Third.
is somehow highly connected to this process, and I didn't know if you could shed some light on that.
The system that I use, for one of the systems for understanding what's going on in the chakras, defines the third chakra at your solar plexus as being about your relationship with yourself.
Figures.
Whereas the root chakra is about your relationship with tribe. So it's the
Yeah.
group, or you and group. And
Yeah.
the second chakra is about you and you and another individual. So one-on-one relationship. But the third chakra is about your relationship with yourself, and describing that as human self, essence self, the divine, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, kind of processing through there.
Thank you. That's super helpful to be able to ask that question as well.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Janet. Thanks for sharing so much.
Bye,
Bye,
Ursula.
Ursula.
Tanya, would you like to follow?
Sure. Um, so I'll share just like a couple of thoughts that went through my head and some observations, but also in question. And I don't mean to be asking you a question. So this is not a question to respond to, but it's just a question. So there's this beautiful intentional way that you start the morning with meditation, or if you need to come back, you're able to listen to breath, or you listen to the ticking of the clock, or you can come back into body really nicely. It seems like that's a skill, a tool that you've honed. And then throughout the day, you say as the day goes on, your energy declines. And so I'm wondering if there um, there are ways that you can micro reset, so that if it feels like possibly the energy, the spigot that, turns on and off energy is left wide open instead of like tampering it down and, adjusting it as you go. And so I'm wondering if there is something that needs to come into awareness of like, how do I quickly reset, as opposed to like, now I'm going to set another 10 minutes aside for meditation or whatever. We can't do that, right? We're being called to respond to things. So I'm just wondering about that. And I'm sure that you have those tools, but it may be just that bringing some awareness to that so that you're not left at the end of the day completely depleted, a tank that is empty.
I love that term, micro reset. That is beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, one of my micro resets is just to really get quickly in my mind is, something happens or somebody says something that feels I react to, and I might just say quickly like, ouch, that hurts. To let my nervous system, my emergency part of my emergency nervous system, triple warmer, vagus nerve, whatever you want to call those, however you think about that, knows that you acknowledge it because it's its job to keep getting your attention. And so I quickly acknowledge, and then I ask the nervous system, like, what do you need right now? And it may just be like, oh, I just needed you to acknowledge me. I just needed you to acknowledge that that felt ouchy, that hurt a little bit, or that stung. So they're all different kinds of resets, but that's one, just what that's what I mean is like the mindset of like, ouch, that hurt. Duly noted, I got that.
Yeah.
I'll be back to you in a minute. Or what do you need right now? Do you need something small right now, or do you just need to be acknowledged? So um, so there's that, and I think, gemotherapy wise, Lauren's going to speak to, I guess oak comes to mind for me, the strong oak, but she may have something, I'm sure she has other ideas. And then there is a lot of talk about relationship or like setting up the environment so that it supports me and holds me, having the cat so it supports me and holds me. But Ursula got to that place of, it feels like there is like in family constellations, there's this family, different parts of that is not quite operating as smoothly as it could in committee, like in relationship to itself. So if there's a way to access that, do that inner committee work, that could be helpful. And you made that connection to like, I don't really know who my community is right now. Like, do I go out and recreate community? Like, who should be in my community? So again, a lot of talking about my relationship to environment, my relationship to cats, my relationship, whatever, and what do I get? Possibly, and those things feel really important, and possibly is there this way of resourcing to the committee within, like the parts of me, and that's a quick access, right? You don't have to go anywhere or do anything or, So those are just observations, and yeah, it was really, as always, it's really neat to hear other people's ideas and to hear you reflect back. Thank you.
Tanya. Yeah, no, this is wonderful.
Yeah,
Gifts appreciated.
thanks, Tanya. And I think I'll go ahead and just dive in a little bit with Jimmo since you brought them up, Tanya. it's interesting you mentioned oak. There is a complementary extract to oak, which is blackthorn, that I want to speak to for a moment, because blackthorn works with helping you retain that sense of an organized, we could call it regulated nervous system. And I too was really struck by that sense of kind of running our day on a downhill slide. And I think many people experience that, and because it requires so much energy to retain that state of regulation. So when I'm thinking about GMOs, I'm thinking about them as a way to resource your tank and to be your micro resets in the day. And I think that in combination with some of these other practices, I think will help fill your tank. So when I think about nourishment and filling tanks, I think about oat. That would be a first extract I would go to. Oat is very useful in helping us root where we are and to feel the strength regardless of what's happening around us. So may or may not have been something you turned to during the move, but it would certainly resource you now. It has an adaptogen action, so taking it first thing in the morning will help carry you through the day. The other complementary extract to it is hops. And hops speaks to me more of this connection to your inner self, right? And that was something you and Christine kind of danced around, is this embodiment, right? You and the state of hops is exactly what you and Ursula were speaking about. Is I'm really aware of what all these people are doing, but I'm working really hard to keep what they're doing to keep it from impacting me. So hops and oats, and then complementing that, I like the offer that blackthorn brings, because it's not as pushy as oak. I think oak helps with that kind of depleted state and the strength that you're looking for, but it might be a little pushy at first, and blackthorn instead, with its ability to work again as an adaptogen, and it works right along that hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, which are really our chakra centers too, right?
Lovely.
And so I love that alignment. As Janet and you were speaking, I was like, bing, bing, right? Let's just tap into each one of them. And then just finally, Cameron, I love your conversing out loud. I also speak to myself, and I think it was a practice you brought me more familiar with in our work with polyvagal theory. But I envision this beautiful conversation between Cameron the elder and Cameron the child, going back and forth all day long, and letting the elder speak to the child. And the more that happens, the more the elder, I think, will come out like, oh, I actually have got this, right?
I love that, Lauren.
Yeah. So that's what I have to offer. Thank you, Cameron.
Thank you.
Great. Lois, how about you?
Yeah, it's interesting listening to what everybody else has to say, and like hearing the overlaps and then the new pieces that come. It's really quite beautiful. But to me, Cameron, it feels like there's a twofold aspect to what's happening here, and Janet, with the first and the third chakras, it's encapsulated. I went, oh yeah, that's what I'm thinking about. But there's my relationship with myself, and then my relationship with the rest of the world, and the people around me, and in how important it is for the relationship with myself to feel comfortable, for you to trust you, to then turn and be able to trust others. So it feels like there's an experimenting in both of those spaces for you. And one thing that came up when Christine was talking to you, and she asked you about where you felt it. And you said my breath, and then you just kind of blew past it. It's like, no, I don't really notice in my body, but there's your breath. And you also said, I don't know where my anchor is. And in yoga, your breath is your anchor. So, and it's always available to you. So in those little like micro resets is a few breaths.
Beautiful.
A few breaths. And there's this thing of like taking your seat in life, is like and not getting knocked off your seat because you feel comfortable in you.
Mm-hmm.
And appreciating that uniqueness of you, and then being able to see how other people appreciate that uniqueness in you. Because I'm not sure you, I'm not sure you hear that so the other aspect of this is the relationship with others. And I'm going to suggest a little dabbling in just putting yourself out a bit there and seeing who does resonate with you. Who do you enjoy being with? Who do you trust?
Mm-hmm.
And you just feel like you can just be you.
Mm-hmm.
And just little experiments. You don't have to dive in the deep end. Yeah. And have some fun.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Christine, how about if you wrap this up?
Yeah, great. Well, everything that everybody's talked about is 100% reflected in Cameron's design.
I love that. Why am I not surprised?
Um, and there's many points, but I'll just try to keep it to a few that I think are the most telling. And so this piece about this connection to ourselves, right? Janet spoke about our third chakra, which is the solar plexus. And in human design, we have a solar plexus, center, energy center as well. And it is the center in us it's our emotional center. And in your case, Cameron, it's open. It's receiving energy all the time from others, right? You're not generating your own emotions, you're receiving it. And you have been since you were a child. And this is a very huge space for us as children to do exactly what you said. How do I make other people happy so I can feel safe,
Mm-hmm.
right? This emotional piece is huge. And when we don't look at it and when we become the not self, when we become something other than who we truly are, that plays out as avoiding confrontation and truth, right? Like that is the signature of an open solar plexus in human design, right?
Wow.
And so it is a mechanical piece in
Mhm.
you in particular, right? So it's just, I find it fascinating that you're like, yeah, I have this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I can see it right there in that map. Um, and so just recognizing like there's nothing to be fixed there, right? Like it's not wrong. It's correct for you to be empathic, but it's also your job, you're learning in this lifetime how to discern what's yours and what's not, right? So really paying attention to what's not yours. And that's that eldership thing we talked about too, right? Like you're like, oh, I think I'm actually getting to this wisdom of like, all of this is fine.
So true. Yes.
Right. So that is a very big piece. The other thing that I think is quite telling is you have what we call a split definition. You have two energy centers in your design. They don't actually communicate with each other all the time. And so you have a split between your identity and your manifestation center and your mind. So you can speak directly from your mind and from your higher knowing, but you don't necessarily have consistent connection to your sacral yes no response in the world, your embodied wisdom, right? There's an actual energetic split there.
Wow.
And often it's people that connect that up. So being in community can be really useful and helpful to somebody with this split, because sometimes that allows that energy to flow. And then you have all those pieces together and you're like, oh, I totally understand what's right for me in this moment. And I can talk about it and I can feel trust in it because I have this connection to my higher self.
Mhm.
Right. And so for you being really clear that being with people, and I think the cats do this, right? All of other beings can also connect us up in this way. And so recognizing that they're actually performing a physical energetic function for you as well is really lovely. And within that split, this piece where you have your identity and your throat and your mind in one energy unit, if you just had that in human design, we would call you a self-projected projector. And self-projection, in the way a self-projected person works, is they need to hear themselves speak. Right? And so when you said that, I was like, oh my gosh, you're doing the self-projection. So I would say that it is actually, even though it's not technically your authority in your design, because of this split, I think you have a piece of you that really it's important for you to talk through things. So either on your own, with your cats, with a trusted sounding board. This isn't something where you want anybody else's opinion. You just need to hear yourself speak so that you know what you think. And what you feel.
Because I think so often I'm intuitively looking for that. And then somebody's like giving me all, well, you should do this and you should do that. And it's like, then it's not working anymore.
Right, exactly. But this is a great way for you to say, no, I just need your ears, right? I know this about myself. I don't need your opinion. It's not that I don't trust or value your opinion. It's just not what I'm processing right now. This isn't what I need, right? And recognizing that it's a mechanical piece in you might be really helpful for you to say, I don't need the opinions. Right? So, and there's plenty more, but I think those are the pieces that I think are most shining and, meld so nicely to what everybody else has said. So I really appreciate it.
What a beautiful context. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, everyone. Thanks so much. And I'm going to ask that we just take a breath for a moment and feel into the experience we just had. We've done this a number of times, and each time I personally am surprised how held I feel just being part of the group. And Cameron, I wonder if you could start us with just a couple sentences about how it felt to be heard and then responded to from the group.
It's really quite remarkable because when we get together as a group and I'm just one of the many, I already feel very, very held. To be specific in this position, it's exponential. It just, and it's there's a quality of the invitation to heal that, I'm the trained psychologist, I'm the trauma therapist, I am them. And I don't know many, if any, other situations where this quality of being held is so potent and in such a positive way.
Thank you, Cameron. Thanks for
I
sharing.
thank you. I sometimes have like what I call my gratitude tears, when I just sort of overflow, but it's deeply grateful.
Beautiful. Yeah. Janet, how about you? How's the experience of being in this group for you today?
I felt as we went along, I felt an increasing crescendo of a sense of kind of the mastermind or the collective mind, heart being at work here. That was my biggest experience of just feeling, individual and having a contribution to offer, and the connection with everyone else in the group. And as we all spoke and referenced to each other, it was just such a lovely feeling of community and contribution through community, or whatever, through all of us. So it was a very rich experience today. Thank you.
Thanks, Janet. Tanya, how about you?
I think I felt very much the way I felt when we've done this in the past, but the neat thing is every time is, you know, it has its own special uniqueness in that, you know, all of these perspectives are on target and may sound a little bit different with a little bit overlapping, but how connected we are. Like we're just not alone, and we are very much part of this web. And that's really comforting to be able to feel into, you know, what Janet was getting at, you know, the collective space, or the, you know, the collective energy in it. And that's always you can't create that unless you come into community, right? I mean, this doesn't get done on its own. It has to, you have to be, you have to be open, and there has to be a vulnerability, and there has to be an integrity and honesty that comes forward. And then there's amazing creation that happens from that place.
Yeah, thanks, Tanya. Christine, how was it for you today, holding space with Cameron? That was a new experience for you too.
Yeah, it was a little, it was a little trickier for me this time just because it was new and I wasn't, you know, it's not something that I don't necessarily have a practice of doing. So it was like, I don't know, am I going to do this or not? So there was some of that. But, you know, very quickly, it's just a conversation very quickly, right? You're just like, you're in a conversation with somebody that seemed to go okay. But yeah, I just feel like this process is, it's actually interesting again from a human design perspective because it actually articulates exactly what we teach about the energetics of ourselves, right? So like all of us have our own aura. When we come together with another person, we form a different energy, right? There's a third energy that's formed. And then when we come together in groups of 5 and more, we have yet a different energy, right? And I think that that's really reflected here in this space, right? Like it's one thing to go to somebody's private practice and talk to them, and you know maybe you make certain headway and have certain insights, but it's going to be limited by the energetics of that connection piece. But when you're in this what we call a penta, all of a sudden the limits are almost, there aren't any limits, right? There's some energetic thing that goes on that I don't think we can quite understand, but is decidedly different. And no one of us has any, you know, other than just showing up, right? And so I love this idea that it's not, again, like just as Ursula said, we're none of us are special, but we're all unique, right? And when we come together, this energy becomes a special, unique energy that we couldn't, that it could not be created any other way. And I think that that's what the person in the center of it is receiving in that moment.
Thanks, Christine. Thanks. Lois, how about you?
It's Christine just beautifully expressed something that I've been feeling. It's in that, like when I work one-on-one with an individual and I drop into presence and it's beautiful. But when I come into the group like this and we're all present together, there's like an exponential aspect to that presence. And it's like time doesn't matter anymore. It's like just totally losing track of time and being in the space and the feeling into what's being brought forward, and the interesting parts where there's the commonalities, because like you, I grew up in have to keep a low profile situation too, but then being able to go and yet this is Cameron's situation. It wasn't identical to mine, and allowing the nuances of your experience to fill. And it's the other thing is I'm also a Reiki practitioner, and when I practice Reiki, I get a treatment while I'm giving a treatment, and this feels the same way.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up, Lois. I think that has been my personal experience. I feel this group almost like there's the person that is sharing their experience at the moment in the center. There's the group around them. And then I absolutely feel a group around us. And that group, that energy around us feels like it holds us in such a protective space. And then as I'm always wondering, like, how is this all going to unfold? You know, you're curiously listening, and we all come from such a variety of backgrounds, and yet it all unites, right? It all comes together because I believe it comes because we're here serving your essence, Cameron. We're here and it's being spoken through us. It's not coming from us intellectually at the moment. We're just allowing ourselves to drop in safely in the place. So thank you. Thank you so much, Cameron. And thank all of you wise women. And I really look forward to this new opportunity we're taking in 2025 of sharing this outwardly with the world and getting this idea out for others who may aspire to create groups like this for their community or would like to sit in our circle and see what that feels like to you. So thank you all for joining us.